Hey, it's Mike Hambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting VIP interview where I interview some of the most successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs and those who serve us in our industry to help you learn and grow. Today, I'm joined by self-directed IRA expert Kaaren Hall, and she's going to share some do's and don'ts of self-directed IRAs. There's a lot of misconceptions about how self-directed IRAs work. It's a fantastic tool, but you really need to know how to use them and work with somebody that does. But before we get started with Kaaren, let's take a second to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hi, Kaaren. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, for those that... It's a really interesting topic, self-directed IRAs. In fact, I went to a mastermind that I just recently joined, and there were some people that, everybody there is using them because they understand the power of them. And I know there's a lot of misconceptions, even if folks have kind of heard that word thrown around, a self-directed IRA. But before we get started talking about that, why don't you kind of introduce us and tell us kind of how you got into this business?
Yeah, I like to joke and say when I was a little girl, I always wanted to self-direct my IRA.
Yeah, that's true, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you've been able to self-direct an IRA for 40 years, so there's that. No, but I started after a career in broadcasting, okay, I got into real estate. I made the natural leap into real estate. I started in property management, managing some apartment buildings. Okay. And got a real estate license. And then sold real estate, and then kind of became the trailing spouse while we moved, and with all that going on. And so I've had a real estate license in Washington State, Texas, and California.
All right.
So I was in real estate. I was in mortgage lending, like mortgage loan servicing for a while, about 8 years, and then got into mortgage loan origination. So that spanned about 16 years.
Wow.
I'm just going to make up words here. So it spanned 16 years.
And, I make up words all the time, so that's okay.
and so when the opportunity came up to do self-directed IRAs, it was just such a natural fit because I already understood what the account holders were investing in. But I started working for a competitor who will go nameless.
Okay.
In this section of the program.
All right.
And so we parted ways. And then I started Directed IRA services almost exactly 5 years ago.
All right.
And in that time, we've opened over 2,200 accounts, and everybody's self-directing like crazy. So it's good.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So for those that aren't really sure what a self-directed IRA is, and of course there's different flavors of that. There's traditional and Roths and a number of other things. But just kind of talk in principle about what a self-directed IRA is, and then maybe some of the benefits that account holders typically get, why they use them.
Sure. Well, there's an IRA. Everybody pretty much knows what that is. It's an individual retirement account or individual retirement arrangement, and it's a way to save for retirement. So a lot of times what will happen is you've got a 401k where you used to work, and then you move it into an IRA, and you may or may not realize what's going on there, but typically that's in the stock market. So a typical IRA is invested in the stock market. When you've got a self-directed IRA, the only difference between those two kinds is that a self-directed IRA now is open to a whole new set of asset classes.
Right.
So the typical IRA is stocks, bonds, mutual funds, maybe a CD. The self-directed IRA, doors are wide open. Now you've got real estate. Now you've got notes. Now you've got raw land, private stock, precious metals, so many different kinds of things.
Right.
That the IRA can invest in. So the only difference between the two is the kind of asset that the plan can invest in.
Yeah, and what's interesting, for me, I actually started. I was a finance undergrad. I worked for a massive bank that basically had corporate. Basically, we manage corporate pension funds. Literally, at the time, over $1 trillion. This is going to date me way back. I think it's much, much larger than that now. But they were huge corporate pension funds that basically hundreds and hundreds of money managers were doing their best to try to beat the S&P 500, which starts you kind of questioning things. But when we got out into, when we started in real estate investing, we're like, well, and my wife used to be an investment banker on Wall Street, and we're like, we just don't believe in the financial engineering of Wall Street anymore. At least we don't trust it as much as what we know, which is real estate. And so it's always been a shame that we still have some funds that are tied up, and we're not allowed to invest in ourselves or in our industry even, which is kind of crazy, but that's where this vehicle comes around for real estate investors, right?
It really, really does. We say invest in what you know best. That's kind of a thing we say in the industry. So that's exactly right. I mean, how much do you, unless of course it's your wife, but how much does the average person really know about the stock market?
Right.
About how it really works? And if you've got some fund manager making decisions about your retirement, wouldn't it be better if you were making those decisions?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, there's no such thing as, I mean, part of it is just the dismay with the market. There's no such thing as a blue chip stock anymore, right?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
Ask a stock person about that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that people love self-directed IRAs. They love putting real estate in there, and that's probably what 95% of our account holders do.
Yeah, yeah. So talk a little bit about why real estate investors use that. I mean, of course, it gives them access to investing there, but there's a lot of tax benefits as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Now, there are pros and cons to that, right? So if you're going to invest in real estate, a lot of people do that because they get tax breaks and they can write things off and take depreciation, and that's great outside of the IRA. But when you're investing inside the IRA, the tax benefit you get is that the growth is tax-free or tax-deferred. So that's great. So just know that outside the IRA, you get to write it off in your taxes. Inside the IRA, you're not writing it off.
Right.
So outside the IRA, you own a house, like maybe you own a condo in Hawaii, and so you decide, hey, I'll take the family out there and write it off. Well, outside the IRA you can do that. Inside the IRA you can't.
Okay.
So just so you know, pros and cons. But when all of that growth is tax-free in a Roth or tax-deferred in a different kind of IRA, that's where the power exists.
Yeah.
And you don't have some fund manager, going back to Wall Street, you don't have some fund manager taking 1% of your earnings away from your retirement, whether you make money or not.
Right.
That doesn't happen in a self-directed IRA. We have a small flat fee per year, not even based on a percentage of assets in your account. So you get to keep more of your retirement gain than you would investing in the stock market.
And so talk about, I know there's some prohibited transactions, so talk about the types of things that you can invest in and that you can't.
Yeah, it's super important. When it comes to the self-directed IRA game, if you think of it like a game, like what are the rules, what's keep away, and keep away is prohibited transactions. So if you want to look at the rules, it's Internal Revenue Code 4975, where it's written. That's where you can read it all. Maybe you can't sleep one night. You just open up the Internal Revenue Code. There it is. But basically, it's like this. No personal benefit. So you're not going to benefit today from your retirement. These accounts, retirement purposes only. It's just for later. You don't take a salary. You don't lend money to yourself. You don't have any personal benefit today. Even indirect benefit. I get asked the question, because you know how investors are smart people and they want to find a way to make it happen,
Yeah.
So you don't just take your IRA and invest in like an LLC, and then the LLC invests in something, and then it brings it back to you. No, the IRS already figured that out. They call that indirect benefit. It's disallowed. Okay, that's a prohibited transaction. You don't do that.
Okay.
The other thing you don't do is you stay away from investing with disallowed people, your lineal ascendants and descendants. So your parents and grandparents and their spouses, you and your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, and their spouses, disallowed to the IRA. Okay.
Okay.
So that's important. Now, so your IRA can buy a house, and your uncle can stay there, but your dad can't, because your dad's disallowed to the IRA and the uncle's okay.
All right.
Right. So you need to know the rules, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Now, the other kind of disallowed or prohibited transaction is you're not allowed to take your IRA and provide goods, services, or facilities to the plan. So anyone disallowed, lineal ascendants and descendants, anybody offering services to the plan cannot provide goods, services, or facilities. So here's what that means just in English. What it means is that your IRA owns a house, maybe a really nice house there in Dallas where you are. And hey, guess what? It's summertime, the grass is growing crazy, it needs to be mowed. So you're thinking, well, my IRA owns this house, but my son could go mow that, because what's he doing? He's just sitting there. So he can go mow the lawn. No, your son is a disallowed person. He cannot provide services to the plan, even for free.
Okay.
So if, say you're a realtor, you think, oh, well, my IRA is going to buy a house, I'll be the buyer's agent and get the commission. That's personal benefit. That's offering services to the plan. Can't do that.
All right.
Now, you know how they tax you when you die, right? Estate tax?
Yep.
They tax you when you sweat. And in Dallas, you sweat a lot, because I used to live there. So if you go in there and you're swinging the hammers and you're trying to drywall or do any of the work, that's called an over-contribution of sweat equity. And you're not going to be doing that. So with self-directed IRAs, real important to remember, keep at arm's length. That's a good rule.
Okay. So you can buy properties yourself, and then you can rent them or sell them, or it's kind of all the things you just said, disinterested parties, I guess. And so talk about what else you can do. I know a lot of folks lend out of their IRAs. Talk about lending.
Yeah, before I'll get to lending, but I think you brought up something that I'd like to touch on, and that's this. So here's what you can do when your IRA owns a property, because you can't provide services to the plan, but you can select the property, you can choose your renters, you can physically pick up and collect the rent checks, even though they're made payable to the IRA. You can hire third-party vendors to do the work, but you're not going to do the work yourself. So I just want to say that there are things you can do when your IRA owns a house. But as far as being a lender, I'll tell you, that is great for an IRA because it's passive. And IRAs tend to be a passive thing. And so your IRA can lend money all day long. People invest in trust deeds, whether they're trust deeds that they're making, initial trust deeds, or they're buying a trust deed that's already been made, like you're buying a seasoned loan, for example.
Okay.
So it works all ways that people invest in notes. And, as long as being a good lender is an art form in itself of choosing the right person to lend to.
Yeah.
But people really do like that with their IRA.
Yeah, yeah. So talk about, are there any other things you want to kind of mention that you can or can't do with, most of what you've said right now is that more for I guess it's the same whether it's a Roth or a traditional. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's some different benefits that you might get if it's a Roth versus a traditional as well. Right. But are there any other do's or don'ts or things you'd advise people to do or not do?
Yeah, let's address that. So the IRAs are there are different types of IRAs, yep. Right? So like you say, traditional, which is a pre-tax account, you put the money in, it grows tax deferred, and you probably get a tax deduction, and when it comes out, you pay tax then.
Right.
The Roth, where if you qualify, if you don't make too much money to make a contribution, it goes in after tax, grows tax-free, and comes out tax-free for life. The SEP is a pre-tax account, the Simple is a pre-tax account, and so forth. So there are different kinds of accounts, right. And that's the basket that the asset sits in, and there are rules for that. But then just to go on about, I think probably like a misconception, one of the things, especially about real estate investing, that people completely misunderstand, and it's so logical, and I get this call like once a week, is, hey, I'm so excited, I found this property, my IRA is going to be the down payment on this house that I just found. It doesn't work that way. The IRA is not a down payment on a loan. That biggest misconception of all with real estate.
So you can't lend to yourself, right?
You can't lend to yourself, right. So your IRA is not going to buy a house that you own personally. Your IRA is not going to buy a vacation home. You're not allowed to have any use at all of the asset that your IRA owns. None, no personal use.
Okay.
It's for investment purposes only. So that's great. But even if you're buying an investment property, the IRA is still not a down payment on the house, unless you're getting something called a non-recourse loan.
Right.
And that's a special kind. It's like a commercial loan. What you really need to think about it is, you need to think of it as a commercial loan made to the IRA itself, not to you personally. Because you're not allowed to personally guarantee a loan to your IRA. That's a prohibited transaction.
Okay.
So the loan is made to the IRA, and then the profits are taxable. You put money in an IRA because you want to defer tax. Even in a Roth, if your IRA borrows money, your IRA can be subject to a tax, and that tax is called UDFI, Unrelated Debt Financed Income Tax. So you can read about it on the IRS website, publication 598. Read all about it, how an IRA can be taxed. Talk to your tax person.
Yeah.
But that's something to keep in mind.
Okay. So talk a little bit about, we won't get into all the accounts, all the different types of accounts today because we just don't have time to do that, but talk about kind of the main differences between traditional and a Roth.
Okay. All right. Well,
for the purpose of and how real estate investors use them.
Right, they're so similar. And the only difference, like a real estate investor would use a traditional just like they use the Roth. The benefits would differ on when they pay the tax. On a Roth, you pay the tax going in, and it comes out tax-free for life. That's sort of the brass ring, and that's like winning the game. If you've got a big Roth IRA where some people will make little micro loans, go to real estate investor clubs, make little micro loans, build that account till they can buy a big asset and then just keep building it.
Yeah.
And I know a couple of people who have $1 million Roths because they started doing that and they were successful.
Wow.
But the way a Roth invests is self-directed. The way a traditional IRA self-directs and invests is the same. It's just the tax benefit of that bucket or shell.
Okay. So talk about some practical uses of how real estate investors, in your experience of all your clients, are using IRAs as a vehicle to build their own businesses first, I guess.
Well, they're not going to use it to build their own business because you're not allowed to have any personal benefits. So here's the thing. There's another kind of tax, and it's called UBIT, unrelated business income tax. So if you are seen to be running a business in your IRA, maybe you're a flipper, and that's how you put bread on the table, that's how you send your kids to college, is with the money you make flipping property. That's your business. Even if you flip one house in your IRA, it could lead to that tax. Doesn't mean you can't do it, just means it could be taxable.
Okay.
So it's super important to understand that your IRA doesn't run a business, and if it does, you run the risk of it being taxable.
Okay. So primarily, your clients are folks that are lending to other real estate investors. Then is that safe to say, or?
A lot of the time. I mean, seriously, your IRA. I heard a story where somebody told me that they were at a dinner party with their next door neighbor, and the next door neighbor was talking about the terrible rates they were getting at the time, back when interest rates were high, on a car loan. And so at dinner she said, well, hey, look, I've got money in my IRA. Why don't you borrow the money from my IRA? So he borrowed the money from her IRA to buy a car and made the car payment back to her IRA. So in that case, it wasn't real estate. It was secured on a vehicle. The IRA made a secured note against the vehicle, and that worked. So it works like that too.
So that had to be in a self-directed account, though, right?
Correct. A regular, typical IRA, you could not lend the money. Like if you call one of the big brokerage houses, they would tell you, they might tell you that we can't help you, or they might say you can't do that. And the truth of it is you can do that. You just need a self-directed account.
Right. So how about to give some more practical experiences? Are people using Roths for doing wholesale deals, assignments, and wholesales?
Yeah, wholesale. Yes. I mean, every type of real estate transaction can be done in an IRA. The IRS says that the only things you can't do are life insurance contracts and collectibles. So as long as we see that the IRA is receiving an asset in exchange for the money, as long as the IRA is receiving a tangible asset, you can pretty much do it with your IRA.
Okay.
But if it looks like sometimes there used to be deals like this, and we don't do them anymore, but remember when you could buy real estate on the tape? Remember those days? So someone would say, okay, well, just put your money in escrow and we'll assign a property later after the fact. That's not okay anymore because a lot of people were, stolen from that way.
Yeah.
So we're not just going to send money to escrow hoping there might be some asset in the future. If the money's going out, an asset is being secured.
Okay.
And
so for folks that you work with or your clients that are lending to other real estate investors, what kind of benefits can they expect to receive? Or, I mean, I know that it's basically between the two parties how they negotiate rates, but is it always just a rate, or do they have profit sharing deals, or talk about other benefits that folks might receive?
For these deals, like how the deal structured, there could be an equity kickback, right? Your IRA could like, for example, your IRA can lend money at X percent with an equity kicker. But when you're doing that equity kicker, that can lead to that tax, that UBIT tax. So that's when you want to talk to your tax advisor and say, hey, look, I'm looking at this deal. This is what I'm looking at. Do I owe this tax? If I do, how does that pencil out? Remember Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits? Yeah. He always says, begin with the end in mind. Yeah. So especially with your IRA, because it's precious money. It's hard to stick away. You're limited how much you can contribute. Yeah. It's hard to replace the losses. So pencil it all out in advance and talk to your tax person. Have them involved in the deal when you're structuring it.
Okay. Well, are there any other do's and don'ts you want to talk about, and specifically as it pertains to real estate investors, or any other creative ways you see folks using them that you want to talk about?
Well, I think what I want to say is that a lot of times with self-directed IRAs, there are misconceptions about what the role is of the account holder, and because it's self-directed. So what we're here to help you administratively, hold your hand administratively through the paperwork.
Okay.
But when it comes to the asset itself, it's so important to make sure you've got to be very responsible because you're now taking on that role of being the expert, the investing expert.
Right.
It's self-directed. So what I saw an attorney whose IRA bought a house, and what he was doing, which was, we didn't know this at the time, he was having his renters, the people renting his IRA-owned property, send the rent checks to him personally.
Huh.
And he was claiming it on his tax return. So he thought he was fine. But the money, all proceeds of the IRA have to go back to the IRA. All expenses of the IRA have to be paid for by the IRA. So if your IRA owns a house, you need a new roof. One woman went out and got a home equity line of credit to pay for the new roof on her IRA-owned house. Ouch. How do you unring that bell?
Right.
You don't take personal assets and put them into an IRA-owned asset. You just don't do that. So just remember that all expenses are paid for by the IRA. All proceeds must go back in the IRA. Back to our attorney where the rent was coming into his account every month, his personal account. He called us and said something like, and then he told us what he was doing. And once we knew that, we had to disperse his account to him as a taxable event because he breached that. It's no longer a self-directed IRA. He's got constructive use of his IRA funds. It got dispersed to him as a taxable event. So you know, the rules of the game, the self-directed IRA game, you need to know them before you get started. And that's what we're here for, to help you with that.
Yeah. And so with your company, I know you're a third-party administrator. Kind of talk about the different players that are typically involved, like the administrator, custodians, like who all the different roles are that folks should consider, in the process. There are
really 4 roles in this thing. So there's you, the person, the IRA holder. You're one human entity. And there's the IRA. So when you're taking your IRA money and you're investing it, it's not, your money. It's not Mike's money. It's the custodian for the benefit of Mike's IRA. That's how that works. And so you don't sign the offer to purchase. I mean, when do you buy real estate and not sign the deal, right? We sign it on behalf of the IRA is how that works. So there's one party is you, the other party is the IRA. Then there's us, you Direct IRA Services. And we're the point of contact through the whole process. From the time you open your account till, God bless it, hopefully, one day you may pass away and your heirs will take on that account. We're there through the whole thing, the whole life cycle.
Yeah.
When I started the company 5 years ago, I enlisted the help of a trust company custodian. So they're the ones that their employees are bonded and insured. They're holding the money, and they're dispersing the funds and pushing the button and wiring the money. So there's that. So those are the players in the game. You, your IRA, the third-party administrator, and the trust company custodian are the players in the self-directed IRA game.
Okay. And maybe take a few minutes to talk about how folks can open an account, like, what probably not too many technical details about how much they can contribute and things like that. I know that varies, but a little bit about how they may be able to roll over a 401k from a company that they left, or even roll over an existing IRA into a self-directed.
Yeah, there are really 3 ways to do this. When you're contributing to account, you can write a check and make a contribution. How much? Ask your tax person. Depends upon your age, your account type, and your income. That's one thing. Another way to get money into an IRA is an IRA to IRA transfer. Money goes from one IRA to the other. And the third way is a rollover, where you fill out the documentation of your previous employer. You go to their plan administrator, fill out their paperwork, and then they move the money into your IRA. But it's really a 3-step process, the whole self-directed IRA. Open, fund, invest. Fill out the paperwork, open the account. Number 2, move the money. Number 3, move the money from the IRA out into the deal. And hey, number 4, enjoy the profit. Hopefully you've made a great investment and it works for you.
Yeah. Well, great, Kaaren, sorry. Any other tips on how folks could go about getting started, or if they want to learn more from you with your company, can you tell us where to go?
Sure. Our website has so much helpful information. It's udirectira.com. The letter U, udirectira.com. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter. We're on everything. We're social media. You can find us. Our website has got a big wealth of information. You can email us, info@directira.com. Our toll-free number is 866-538-3539. So 866-538-3539. And during business hours, there's always somebody here who can answer your question. Doesn't take, if you need to get a return call, it doesn't take very long, and we're always available by email. And you know how this modern world, or we're very in contact with our
Yeah,
account.
awesome. For our listeners, I mean, there's so much power in the self-directed IRA that we're just not able to even cover it all here today. But I definitely encourage folks to check it out. It's a great vehicle, and you can even, a lot of, I know some of the custodians, and maybe you advise this too, is how to work with others to effectively build up a bank for yourself with other people's money in their IRA accounts to use to fund your real estate investing business. And
Absolutely. By the way, I'd like to make an offer. If any of your listeners, if they'd like a copy of the Self-Directed IRA Handbook, they could email me and I'll send it to them, because when you said it, it made the light bulb go on in my head. There's so much to know.
Yeah.
So I'll send a copy of the Self-Directed IRA Handbook to any of your listeners who send an email to me and request it. Just say free book in the subject.
Free book.
So
go ahead and give us the email address you want to use.
Okay, info@directira.com. Free book, and I'll send you a copy of the Self-Directed IRA Handbook, published this year.
Great. Anybody that's listening in, we'll add those numbers and links down below the video, and if they're listening on the podcast, they just have to rewind it a second and write that down.
Perfect, because I really want people to understand self-directed IRAs, because you have a good experience. When you know the rules, know how to play the game, you're going to win.
Absolutely, especially if you're working with the right people. So,
There you go.
Kaaren, well, thank you very much for your time. I definitely appreciate the information on and kind of demystifying things a little bit for us.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks for being here. Bye-bye. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.